Hi everyone, welcome back to a new live stream episode of Anabaptist World. My name is Juan Moya, digital strategist of Anabaptist World, and we are excited to be here with all of you this evening. Tonight we have a
Yeah.
special guest, Wendy Vado. Hola, Wendy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
In this edition of Anabaptist World Plus, we highlight columnist Wendy Vado. She is a regional coordinator of safeguarding and social inclusion for the Latin American Ministry of World Renew. Wendy is just one of the great columnists that contributes to Anabaptist World. Wendy, welcome to this live stream and please take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Juan, and thank you to everyone who is listening us and any platform on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you are. Thank you so much for making this time. And I was trying to identify which topic I would like to share with you, and we were discussing with Juan about migration, and we call it that migration is beautiful. So, Juan, I don't know if you can help me with the screen, and I want to share some thoughts about migration and why I think migration is beautiful. Um, so I'm gonna go and also share some ideas about this. And the first, the first idea that I want to share is that this is the second slide, Juan, and it's like migration is natural. So I'm gonna start with a story. Um, I remember oh, sorry. It's the first slide. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous here. I shouldn't, right? I shouldn't be nervous. The first slide, which is the wall with the butterflies. I remember my time as connecting people coordinator with MCC, Mennonite Center Committee. We were hosting this learning tour about migration, and we were traveling between Honduras and Guatemala and taking a church to talk about migration and which are the roots of migration, right? So the CPC, the Connecting People Coordinator from Mexico, joined us in this learning tour and gave us a blanket where a colectivo or movement made a painting about the monarch butterfly. And the monarch butterfly is a butterfly that flees around Mexico between November and December. And they made this painting about this beautiful butterfly. And they wrote in the blanket, migration is beautiful. And they paint the butterfly. And I always thought about this image and the phrase migration is beautiful. So today I want to share some thoughts about why I think migration is beautiful. So yes, now is the second slide. And I want to start saying that migration is natural, right? Everything around us is in movement, birds, butterflies, as I was saying, animals, and animals include human beings, right? And we are in movement. I think is because our instincts of survival. For instance, we're saying that migration should be called human mobility because it's like we are in movement all the time. Like we survive because we move from one place to another place, right? So I would like to highlight this that migration is something natural. Everything is migrating in somehow, and now we call it human mobility, right? And there is no such a thing about being illegal. There is no such a thing like nobody is illegal, and I think that's important to remind to everyone. We are human beings, and when we are traveling, we're traveling also with our rights. We're human rights. In fact, That's the third slide. Migration is the human right. Migration is the human right recognized by the Universal Declaration of 1948. And the Article 13 states from the UN that everyone has the right to liberty of movement and freedom to choose his residence within the territory of states, and further states that everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country. And I like that poster too, saying like, migration is a human right. And in Spanish, we say, la migración es un derecho humano, and everyone should be able to have that right. If you want to stay in your country, you're welcome. If you want to leave your country, you're also welcome to do that. But that also means that migration is complex, right? And I think we have noticed that there is a different kinds of migration, and some are forced. Everyone who is in human mobility sometimes are forced to leave their countries due insecurity, unemployment, war, lack of access to basic human rights like water, like a house, like education. And sometimes, and mostly of the time, like people who is living in those conditions are forced to be, or they are the most vulnerable people because they choose some dangerous path, some dangerous way to go through it. And some of them, most of the time, are kidnapped, tortured, and the way to United States, for instance. So we got a lot of people moving from different parts of the world to come into United States, and those people are the most vulnerable. They're coming with their families, with the children, and that make them a lot of vulnerable for people who wants to take away their rights, their dignity, their money, their lives. Also, migration in other side is sometimes it's by decision, right? Like I want to move to another country because I want to study, I want to expand my work, I want to travel, I want to do tourism, I want to pursue a dream. So I will say that migration or human mobility is not such a thing like very simple. It's very complex, has different layers, and we as a human being also we're complex, right? And we need to state that there is different kinds of migration, but it doesn't mean that there is a different kinds of person for that migration, and I will explain that later. um Juan, I hope that you're with me in the slide number 5. So I'm not seeing the monitor right now, your monitor, but we are in slide number 5. And as I mentioned before, there are different kind of migration and or human mobility, and sometimes we prefer some migrations than others, right? So that comes with a lot of double standards, for my opinion. And we're calling this more about aporophobia, and I don't know how to translate that in English, but it's like we're not afraid of some people in human mobility. We're afraid to some specific people, and those people are the poorest one, or we think that they look like poor people, because there is a lot of countries, and right now they were traveling a lot after the pandemic. Right. There is a lot of visas that a lot of governments are opening for young people, mostly from wealthy countries, that they can travel around the world. They can go, and even there are somehow taking away the land of the locals. Right, those influencers, those freelancers, those digital nomads that they can work in anywhere that they are, and everywhere. And the government is saying hey, welcome to our countries. Yes, come here. We will give you anything that you need, but please come to our countries. But on the other hand, we have other people like they don't feel welcoming. And why is that? And I think we have to confess our sins, that we discriminate people based in their ethnicity, based in their color scheme, and that is a sin, because all the human beings should be treated with respect and as image of God. So I will also is I think that migration give us the opportunity that as a human being we can be better. We can do better too. We recognize that everyone is a human at the end of the day. As I mentioned, everyone is image has the image of God in themselves. We are daughters and sons of God, of the same God, and we can show our compassion, solidarity, and humanity as well, which sadly has not been the case in some places, in some countries that has this third country rule about. Putting the people in the jail or different places, and the way that they can go again to deport them to their home country. So I think this gives us the opportunity to change that narrative and say like, okay, we cannot stop the human mobility because it's natural, because there's something that is within us as human being. So let's try to change that narrative, because at the end of the day, we're humans. And we can break down stereotypes. I do remember my first time in the United States, I did this exchange program, this exchange volunteer program from MCC. And I was traveling to United States for first time. And I thought before to go to United States that all people from United States were eating every day, every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The meal were hamburgers. I was like so worried about it. I was like, because that's what I was watching in the movies, and we're like, oh, I will just eat hamburgers. And the fact was that when I was living with this host family, they were giving me broccoli, veggies, vegetables, a lot of vegetables. In fact, that year was the year that I was eating a lot of vegetables in my entire life. So I think when we're traveling, we break down stereotypes. We learn about other cultures. We learn about ourselves. Um, and we learn, as I'm saying, and sorry if I'm mentioning a lot, but as we're saying, like, I'm a human being like you. I fell in love. I cry. I have problems with my family, with friends, etc., etc., etc. So I think we can give a chance to them about the migration to break down stereotypes. Um, and also give us the opportunity to advocate to our government about the different approaches about human mobility. So I think at the end of the day is also how we can recognize that something is bad, something is not working, and how we can tell to representatives for the government like, let's do better because this is not working, how we can make this better. And that will create and enrich a better community, because I don't think diversity is a threat. I think diversity is a strength. A lot of culture has been enriched with other culture, learning about other cultures, and I think that's important to recognize that we're not just one culture. We got several in different cultures around the world that are rich in traditions and histories and customs, so we need to learn from them. And I think also this call about be a peacemakers. Peacemakers means that we're sons and daughters of God, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of color scheme, regardless anything. We are daughters and sons of God. So I would say yes, migration is beautiful. Sorry, my daughter were in the background. Migration is beautiful. Human mobility is beautiful because it has the power itself about to transform us. Um, I'm not saying it's easy. I don't think migration is easy in any form because I think it takes a lot of courage to leave your home country, to leave behind your family, your dearest one, pack everything in a suitcase and start again a new chapter in your life. So it's not easy. But I think in general, the things that broadcast are worth it, right? I was working with MCC as a connecting people coordinator person, and I remember that my volunteers, the volunteers that were serving with MCC in different parts of the world, like Nicaragua, Honduras, Costa Rica, and et cetera, in different places, uh, they were coming in one way with a certainly mindset. But then at the end of the service year, they changed. They were thinking in another way, and I think it's because migration, traveling around the world, actually give you another opportunity to think the ways in another perspective. So I always love this phrase that says like, I'm not the same having seen the moon shine on the other side of the world. I remember my last trip was in Kenya. I traveled to Kenya in Africa. And there was a lot of stereotypes that I had about Kenya and being in the continent of Africa. Uh, and I was so amazed about how rich is the culture, how kind is the people. And no, there is no a lot of poverty. There is poverty, and let's face it, any country has poverty. Nicaragua has poverty. United States has poverty, of course. But somehow the social media has is pulled like just that story, right? That just that narrative, and that is um, the risk to just believe what the social media says. But I was amazed about how developed is the country, how the people are living in this amazing culture, and how great was the infrastructure, which is something that I wasn't expected, to be honest, because the stereotypes I was saying. So I always, when I'm thinking about Kenya and the people asking me, right, like when I came back, a lot of people were asking me, like, how was Kenya? They are dying of hunger. There, you see kids dying. And I was like, no, I did not see that. I did not see that. I just saw resilient people and people, yes, struggling like us, but people also like me, having families, having meals, going to the mall, watching movies, um, creating a safe space for their families. So yes, I think we're not the same having seen the moon shine on the other side of the world. And I think migration is hard, it's difficult, but migration give us the chance also to make them beautiful. So thank you so much. And I'm gonna end from my side the PowerPoint presentation. And sorry, my daughter is here and she's making noise. So I don't know, Juan, if you have questions or comments, and we can
Bueno,
take it.
gracias, Wendy. Thank you so much. For both of us, communicating was easier in Spanish, obviously, but because we're
Yeah.
in this medium, we also wanted to share the thoughts, and it's important to for people who in the global north to understand this. different perspectives in their language as well, you know.
Oh
So
yeah,
we're
sorry for my English. Sorry if my
no,
English was too
it's great.
bad.
It's better than mine. But anyways, well, Wendy, thank you so much for sharing about migration. We welcome the viewers, the people who are connected. If they want to ask a question for Wendy, you're welcome to do that in this space. I have a couple of questions for
Yeah.
you regarding Anabaptist World, because we're obviously using the platform to highlight our columnists. Wendy is one of our great columnists of Anabaptist World, and so I'd like to ask you, Wendy, how did you first connect with Anabaptist World?
Yeah. Well, I love writing. That's something very important to know about me. And I just saw this calling about Spanish writers and Anabaptist war. And I think I was following the website or the Facebook page. I don't remember right now, but I just saw the calling. I was like, oh, I should apply because I love writing. I have this blog. I have my blog back then. And I was like, okay, I will apply because I was attracted to the content of the magazine. It has this beautiful and refreshing articles about Anabaptists, just to think different in a different way the Anabaptist faith,
Mhm.
like about racism, about what it means to be a peacemaker. Those kind of titles really catch my attention. It's like, oh, they're very thoughtful, and they're people very smart who are writing those articles.
Mhm.
So I think that got my attention, and the fact that I can share some ideas about my context, right, which is Latin America, about Nicaragua. So that I think that's brought me to Anabaptist Board magazine.
Yeah. Wendy, do you write some columns in Spanish as well for Anabaptist World?
Yeah, I started with the Spanish articles, and one day someone from Anabaptist War contacted me. I think was the editor
Mhm.
Paul
Right.
Schrank. I cannot say that very well, the last name, but he contacted me and say like, I like your content in Spanish, and we would like to invite you to write the column in English. And the first thing I was like, well, I don't know because English is not too good, but I will try. And we've been translating some content that I already write
Uh-huh.
in the past for Anabaptist Word in Spanish. So we were translating that content, but on other, I was creating and trying to edit and translate it to English. My new articles that I was writing. So Paul has been amazing editor, giving me ideas and tips about how to create a very good article. So I like that, and yeah, it has been a process too.
Is there a specific issue that you keep in mind from Anabaptist World, or something you wrote that still resonates with you? Something that you can highlight, maybe?
Like I wrote something that
Yeah, so
was
something that maybe a specific issue that you saw from Anabaptist World that you were interested in, or something that you wrote in one of your columns.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember actually I wrote this essay
Essay.
uh,
Uh-huh.
essay about being a woman in Latin America. What that means that. So I took some parts, and like it's different, right? Essays, articles for magazines are different approaches.
Mhm.
So I remember like I had this article in mind because I was visiting Guatemala, and we went to this magical town in Guatemala where I witnessed a lot of resilience from people from Guatemala, especially women, indigenous women. So I took my time to write down some part of the article, and then I came back home and I started thinking about the essay, and then it becomes an article for the magazine. And I really love that article because really highlights the struggles for women, indigenous women in Guatemala and Central America and in other parts of the world. Just being a woman sometimes it's hard. So yes, I like that one because I'm really connected to different cultures. I love to travel. I love to share stories about different cultures and just to get to know people, like go beyond the stereotype, what the people think about. Like I was presenting about people in Kenya, right? So
Mhm.
about people in United States, like I want to go beyond that. I want to get to know the people and tell the story about them, So I like that article a
And
lot.
I wanna, now that you're talking about that, what do you hope the readers will learn from your columns?
Yeah.
What is the lesson?
Well, that is a good question. Well, I don't know if they're gonna learn something, but I don't know. I feel like with my articles, I just want to provoke something. Like is I think everything that we do as writers, and everything we're doing right now is like to give the chance to people to think in other way, to know other perspective or point of view, right? So for me is more about if someone read my articles and say like, I never thought in this way, right? I never had that point of view before. So I don't know. I feel like more than a lesson, because I don't think I'm an expert in anything. I would say just that people can think differently or give it a chance to say, that's interesting. I never thought that way. So yeah, maybe questions. Maybe people can have more questions than answers. So I hope that to make a trouble.
And have you received any feedback, retroalimentación, from Anabaptist World readers or from someone who has read your article online? Have you received any feedback so far?
Yeah, well, a lot of comments, in LinkedIn. I post a lot of my articles and people react and make comments about how beautiful was the article, or how thoughtful was, or how do you say that, insight, enlightening. Okay,
Yeah.
I think I get stuck in that word. But yeah, I don't think I have like a real feedback, like like the editor telling me like this is too bad, or you should get better than this and that. No, it's more like, yeah, thank you for saying this, or thank you for write this. So yeah, a lot of people has approached me and say thank you for what you have wrote and touched my soul, and has been beautiful. I like that, to be honest. I like that. So thank you so much for those comments I received, by the way.
And another question is, from your experience in writing, what was the thing that keeps you motivated to keep going with your work, with your writing?
Yeah. Hello, here. Oh, okay. Hey, Juan.
Say, say.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah. What
I think
keeps
we
you
lost
motivated
connection.
to keep
Yeah, I
going?
can hear you.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think to get better. I don't think I am actually a writer. Like I think it's a big word. So make me feel like I want to improve my writing skills, and also to tell the world what I'm seeing. Around me. because there's a lot of things that sometimes don't catch our attention. And I had the privilege to travel a lot, and as I was mentioning, um, visiting places and visiting communities. In different parts of the world. I want to tell their stories and share their insights that I appreciate a lot when people coming and give me those, perlas, like pearls. What would be
Uh-huh.
the
Yeah,
translation for
pearls.
that? Yeah, and to share with other people. I feel like the audience or the people who read my articles is kind of like my friends, right? And I just want to have this conversation with a friend that I don't know, but I know it's there, and I say like, "Hey, I just learned this. I want to share with you." So yeah, I think that keeps me motivated just to observe, to see some realities which are really hard, and see how we can change that the reality too, right? Poverty is a big thing. As I were mentioned, how indigenous women face them every day, and I think as Anabaptists we need to get out of the church and go there, stay with the most vulnerable people, with the humble uh, peoples and community, and to do something for them. So yeah, that keeps me motivated.
Okay, and Wendy, one final question. Can you give us a brief summary, or maybe what can we expect for the following articles, your columns of Anabaptist World? Is there something that you have in mind coming up that you want to write about?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna write a lot about migration. So was a very perfect presentation about what I'm gonna say on the columns and the columns that I'm gonna write. We're gonna focus on migration because it's a huge thing right now, right? So I just want to share some thoughts and some ideas about this. As I was saying, migration is complex. Migration has different layers and it's beautiful too. But we need a lot of understanding, right? We need also to go through a lot of process when it comes to understand why the people are leaving the countries, because they're not leaving because they want to. Sometimes they are forced to do that.
Mhm.
So I want to share that, and I think that will be the focus of the next month, to talk about migration and how we as Anabaptist churches we can help with that. I forgot to mention, sorry, but in my presentation, I was thinking, when I'm thinking about migration, we also need to go back and say Jesus was also an immigrant, right? Like he was in human mobility with his family. He left his country. He went to Egypt because someone wants to murder him, right? Herodes.
Mhm.
So what did that mean, that, and how we can approach that in the way that we are Christians and we are communities, also that we need to welcome foreigners and people who is coming to our community. So yeah, I think I'm gonna write a lot about that.
Okay, well, and also for the viewers in YouTube and Facebook, we put a link of Wendy's columns and articles in the website, so feel free to check that out. And Wendy, once again, muchas gracias. Thank you so much for being here with us. And we hope that that the next columns, that a lot of people read them, give you good feedback. And we have something here from Yardeli Martínez. Dice, saludos, Wendy. Inspira a
¡Ah,
leer.
Yardeli!
Inspira a
¡Hola!
leerte y entender tu perspectiva de
¡Gracias!
temas complejos, controversiales y un punto desde la fe también.
Oh, gracias, Yardeli. Gracias por
Excelente.
leerme. Gracias por estar aquí. Jardeli was a CPC. She's Colombian and she was a CPC working in Guatemala. So yeah, I think she knows a lot too what we're saying here. Gracias, Jardeli. Un
Bueno,
abrazote.
bueno, Wendy. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Gracias, Juan, and thank you everyone for listening to us, and thank you so much for reading my articles. Good
Okay.
night.
Good night.